Mythology is defined by the collection of multiple myths, often regrouped under the banner of a religious or cultural belief. Said myths are written, rewritten, reappropriated, and most importantly, reinterpreted. Through legends and belief, these myths eventually end up serving as a fictional plot device. The Mayas, Aztec, Norse, Mesopotamian, and obviously Greco-Roman pantheon of gods and monsters still feeds the imagination of our writers to this day. Which is what happened to a young man named Rick Riordan after being diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. While he was studying Greek mythology in 2nd grade, he asked his father Rick Riordan to tell him bedtime stories about this specific topic. But eventually, Riordan ran out of stories to tell. His son then suggested for him to create his own myth. Rick then invented the mythical hero who, in 2005, will have his own book series named after him, Percy Jackson. The story revolved around the young hero trying to retrieve Zeus' lightning bolt, then stolen by Hades. Plot that will eventually become the main one of Percy Jackson and the Olympian, the Lightning Thief. Seeing as how the book sold at 1.2 million copies, it was only a matter of time before a movie adaptation walked in the studio, and then that's the beginning of many troubles. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and welcome to Screen Scene, the show where we review pop culture. I'm Alex from Azalrix, and today prepare because we're diving deep inside the abyss that is the Percy Jackson saga. First of all, if you like Percy Jackson, be sure to subscribe and activate the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes up. Leave a comment to tell me you enjoy it and smash that like button so that way I know that topic pleases my community. Then we're here to discuss the Percy Jackson movie both as a film and as a movie adaptation. So I will go back and forth between the plot points in the book and the film to compare both of them and see how they tell essentially the same story but way differently. And obviously no Heroes of Olympus here or anything post Percy Jackson book 5. If you're interested in this topic, even though I'm not a master of it, tell me in the comment section and who knows, maybe someday I'll get to it. Oh, and in the description there's a link for my Facebook group about Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus. I don't know personally anyone in that group, but we have some fun discussion, so please join us. Finally, we're here to discuss only the first film. So obviously Sea of Monster will have to wait, but I will eventually get to it if this video does well. Or not at this point, you guys should know I pretty much do whatever I want whenever I want. You call it bad at planning and probably ADHD, I call it creativity. So be sure to be caught up with the 2 movies to follow this video. As for the book part, I'm not an idiot. I know none of you can read, so here's a quick recap. Percy Jackson, a young 12-year-old boy being raised by his mom Sally Jackson and his asshole of a godfather, Gabe Ugliano. When Percy discovers his real dad is an Olympian god, he is taken to the Half-Blood Camp, a summer camp for demigod where he will learn his true father to be Poseidon, one of the 3 great gods of Olympus and god of the seas. Also, fun fact, god of earthquakes. We tend to forget that. Meanwhile, he will learn that the Oracle has predicted that a child born from Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades will make a decision that will destroy or save Mount Olympus. The 3 great gods, in consequences, decide to never have demigod children ever again, pact broken by Hades, then Zeus, then Poseidon. I mean, do you know anything about Greek mythology? These gods are really horny. Held by his friend, including Annabeth, Grover, Rachel, and his own Cyclops of a stepbrother Tyson, in addition to the rest of the Half-Blood, Percy will be taking on the force of Cronus, save Mount Olympus, and refuse the title of god to ask for the Olympian to take better care of their mortal offspring because at some point, god damn it! And if you're interested but reading a 5-book saga is too much for you, just know that all the books are rendered into digestible bites into the Percy Jackson graphic novel, which are honestly pretty great. On that note, today we're gonna watch the first movie, take notes, compare it to the book to finally answer one question. What is wrong with Percy Jackson? So the film opened on a nervous and tormented sky full of wind, rain, and lightning, and then we cut to Oh, not even 35 seconds in and we're already wiping our asses with the book. So yes, this is Poseidon, played by Kevin McKidd, casually walking in New York City, scaring the shit out of a random fisherman, which establishes something in this adaptation: the wall between the Olympians and the mortal is shattered. See, in the book, keeping the Olympians a secret is a big part of the story, and to do so, the world is covered with what we call the mist. The mist is an omnipresent magic force that prevents mortals from seeing something from Olympus or Greek mythology. For example, if there is a dragon flying in the air, a mortal might see a plane or an helicopter, something that will be developed in the sequel, but we're in the first movie. And in that first movie, this very important part of the Percy Jackson world building is destroyed for a joke. Not even a funny one. Poseidon then climbs up the top of the Empire State Building to meet up with his brother Zeus, played by Sean Bean. They have a little bit of an argument.
What do you see?
Thunderclouds.
But no lightning.
You might want to double check that, Zeus. No, because there was lightning legit 5 seconds ago in the opening of the movie.
Omnipotence has blinded you, brother. We are forbidden from stealing each other's powers.
But our children aren't.
Yes, listen, movie. Just a little side note. Zeus is not almighty or omnipotent. Omnipotence is essentially the power of what we call God, being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, to go over any laws of logic and physics. Is Zeus omnipotent in the actual Greek mythology? I tend to say no. Mainly because if Zeus was actually omnipotent, why the need for other gods? That's even the entire idea beneath Christianism. That said, in Percy Jackson specifically, Zeus wants something. He wants his lightning bolt back. And he doesn't know exactly who stole it. Which means Zeus doesn't know everything and he can't do everything since he can't get his lightning back. So, omnipotence? You sure?
Omnipotence has blinded you, brother.
Keep in mind, someone had to double check that dialogue. No, I'm just nitpicking that here because, to be honest, I would have been pretty okay of having an actual Greek mythology accurate Zeus. You know, Poseidon could even have called him off on that instead, like, being a horny and power-drunk bastard has blinded you, brother. So here I could keep nitpicking on definition, or I could just be honest because apart from not sticking to the source material, this is a pretty good opening scene. The only real difference is that this scene establishes Poseidon as a caring father for Percy, as where in the book Poseidon is much closer to his mythology counterpart, which means he doesn't give a crap about his children. Almost none of the actual Greek gods do. But apart from that, the colors, effect, and editing are decent. Zeus is efficiently characterized as a paranoid king and Poseidon as a loving father. They're both pretty well cast. If the rest of the film is like that, there really won't be any problem. The rest of the film won't be like that, will it? Of course not, so we cut to our main character, Percy Jackson, played by Logan Lerman, probably trying to drown himself in shame after seeing his blockbuster track in the early 2010s. But no, turns out he was just testing his apnea skills and that he can stay underwater for 7 minutes. That's where we meet our second main character, Grover Underwood, played by Brendan T. Jackson.
Percy Jackson is a beast! That's crazy, man. That's ridiculous. How do you do it?
I just like being in water.
What? Why isn't the camera cutting away to the rest of the video? No, I know what you're waiting for me to say and I'm not gonna say it. Alright, in the book, Grover is not black, and it is alright. Complaining about the ethnicity of an actor in a fiction where the ethnicity of the character doesn't even matter, like Percy Jackson, it's playing out just racism.
With The Little Mermaid, can we also just mention that just from a scientific perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have someone with darker skin who lives deep in the ocean.
Shut the hell up, completely randomly selected clip of someone complaining about the Little Mermaid skin. She's a mermaid. There is no science behind it. That said, it doesn't mean I have nothing to complain about here, because why are they 40? In the book, our main cast is 12, and that's even a really important beat in the story. First of all, Percy Jackson is a coming-of-age story, a young boy learning how to grow up fast in a world which needs him. Then, in The Last Olympian, the final book in the saga, all the Greek gods are busy fighting a war, letting the demigod handle the army of Cronus. A very crucial point in the story, knowing that our main character are barely 16 years old by this point, and you truly see how much responsibilities are on their young shoulders. So obviously casting Logan Lerman, who's not a bad actor by any means, but who was already 18 by the time this movie came out to play Percy Jackson, it just proves that the screenwriter, director, and casting director didn't get the message beneath what they were adapting. You might notice that I'm not bringing up the fact that Grover is disabled. That's for two reasons. First of all, it was not in the book. We do get somewhat of an explanation about him not having to go to gym class because of something in his legs, but that's it. Otherwise, he walks like you and I. And B, because this point serves exactly one time in the film, and we're getting to it. We then see Percy's family composed of his mother Sally Jackson and Gabe, his asshole of a stepdad, and god damn it, at least Gabe is somewhat well adapted. The only real difference I can think of is the fact that in the book Gabe has a company, which makes him someone who's got money, while in the film they plain out complain about the fact that he can't keep a job.
Why do you stay with that pig? He smells like a sewer. He sleeps till noon every day and he can't even hold a job. Why do you stay with him?
After that, we get an exposition bomb, but an exposition bomb so bad it has become famous throughout the internet for being an example not to follow in screenwriting.
I think this dyslexia thing is getting worse.
Oh, why do you think that?
I don't know. Maybe it's the ADHD.
He's been good to us, Percy, in ways you don't understand.
You're right. I don't understand. I don't get it.
I think my dyslexia is getting worse because of my ADHD, and it's not easy to live with that man who is not my father, which leads me to act in a way that is inconvenient to you or my teachers. Honey, please stop exposing the entire plot of the film so we don't have to show it to anyone. Mom, I think it's pretty clear. No one wants to show that to anyone. The next day, Percy and his school are at the museum where the book actually begins, and we are given a brief roundup of what Greek mythology is.
There are 12 Olympian gods. The big three are the brothers Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. They attain power by overthrowing their father, Cronus. Children of these unions were half god, half human. What is the proper name of the offspring of a human and a god?
Demigod.
A very brief roundup of what Greek mythology is. That might be one of the lowest points in the film. This is Percy Jackson, a story famous for its retelling of Greek mythology in our modern society. You'd think that, knowing that fact, the screenwriter would actually try to shoehorn some actual Greek mythology or some actual lore drop about the Olympians. There is Olympians in the title of the film.
They attain power by overthrowing their father, Cronus, chopping him into little pieces.
Ah yes, Kronos, the main antagonist of the Percy Jackson saga, the Joker to his Batman, the Voldemort to his Harry Potter. And he will never be mentioned again. What a crappy introduction to, let's take Star Wars for example. Obi-Wan lies to Luke about Vader killing his father. This creates a true antagonism between Luke and Vader, and it makes the famous reveal all the more chilling.
He told me you killed him. No, I am your father.
For Harry Potter, Voldemort comes back multiple times throughout the saga, and you can feel his presence even in the first adventure, which makes his Professor Quirrell form an interesting final boss. Here, no one cares about Kronos. He is mentioned once and then brushed away quicker than my self-esteem when I read the comment section.
Everyone knows you've got no self-esteem.
Yeah, that's fair, that's fair. Why did I create you again?
You needed a strawman to represent all the toxic fans you're trying to fight with your videos.
And you don't think that might be a little bit self-destructive?
Yeah, that might be, but once again, I'm a toxic fan, so I really don't care how you feel.
Then Percy gets taken aside by his teacher, Mrs. Dodds. At least that's well adapted. She turns into a fury. She attacks him. And never mind, she flies away immediately. In the book, she's killed right there by Percy. This is important because she disintegrates, and later on in the story, you will learn that when a monster is killed, it disintegrates, goes in the underworld, and regenerates. Not only is it an important and interesting part of the world building of Percy Jackson, it also creates this little paranoia for some characters that a monster they killed a few years ago might come back to take revenge. And it also explains how some monsters who were alive 4,000 years ago can still roam the earth. So by having Dodds just fly away, it creates two problems. First of all, you're left wondering how and why some characters and monsters from Greek mythology such as the Minotaur or Medusa can still be free on the earth if they're over 4,000 years old and are not known to be immortal like the gods. Including the fact that they roam free on the planet without totally shattering our society. But also it means that Dodds, one of the three Furies, resident of the underworld and executive of vengeance, is scared of a young kid backed up with two disabled friends. They nerfed a near-god entity. You do realize that. And don't tell me it's because she recognized him as Chiron once again, she didn't fly away in the goddamn book. After that, Grover takes Percy back to his place so his mom can carry him somewhere safe, knocking down Gabby by the same chance.
Hey, nice one. Like I said, I'm your protector.
Here, the one time Grover being disabled comes into play in the scenario. A mildly funny joke. Is that what the entire movie is to this fandom? A mildly funny joke? Then they embark into a journey.
Okay, I swear, I didn't steal anything.
Honey, I believe you. I believe you.
Yes, Percy, this is clearly the main concern here. You didn't steal anything. Not why did your English teacher just try to rip your head off. I have a theory that says that Percy is dead inside.
Where are you taking me? What is this camp?
It's a camp for really special people. Like you.
Here she's obviously referring to Camp Half-Blood, and trust me, I got something to say about it, but we'll come back to it. Now they get attacked by the Minotaur and Grover reveals to be half goat.
Whoa, whoa! You're half donkey?
I'm half goat.
And Percy doesn't seem to care any further because... No, seriously, this kid is dead inside. So as I was saying, Percy gets attacked by the Minotaur, and to be honest, the effects are decent, so is the lighting and cinematography. The stakes of the fight are alright until that point.
Are you okay?
We need a little bit of setup to understand it. You see, Riptide, Percy's sword, is made of celestial bronze, which means it can't hurt mortals, but it can hurt God, and it can hurt monsters. It is also a mighty weapon, super powerful, passed down from generation to generation, hero to heroes, which if I'm not mistaken can be retraced all the way back to Heracles. And when the Minotaur run in a tree head first, get its horn stuck in it, and breaks it because it can't get it out, and when at equal distance Percy sees Riptide, that moron hesitates. Does he takes the magic sword laying on the ground, or does he takes the horn of the creature that is known to be pure brute strength, and that it couldn't get it out of the tree? And that dum-dum chooses the horn. And it works! Because it's a movie, otherwise you'd be dead. You and I, as the viewer, we know that Percy has a special main character skill tree which allows him to bend the laws of physics and logic for his survival, also called plot armor, but Bella Swan, Harry Potter, and Sterling Archer think you're going too far with it. So the Minotaur crushes Sally, but since she was in the movie for a legit 5 seconds, no one cared. After that, Percy passes out and wakes up 3 days later at the hospital and he's a little bummed out that his mom died?
No. All of it was real? My mom's gone?
Alright, what about the fact that you just impaled a Minotaur with its own horn?
It's my fault. It was my job to protect you. Both of you.
Still nothing? No, he's dead inside! No, seriously, the fight with the Minotaur is a crucial point in Percy Jackson's story. It's like the death of Uncle Ben for Spider-Man. In the book, it lets him traumatized, borderlining on PTSD. The Minotaur is evoked as a fear of Percy, which later comes back in the 5th and final book when the Minotaur becomes the general of Cronus' army. Percy then leading the Half-Blood against this army, you truly see the duality between the two chiefs. And you could argue that this is also where Percy shows how great of a hero he is. Because his desire to save Olympus and his friend is greater than his fear of this Minotaur who seemingly crushed his mom to death in front of him when he was 12. So brushing over it so quickly without any impact on the main story, I think we can all agree it's a missed opportunity.
Oh, so you're rhyming now.
Shut up. So yes, Percy is a demigod living in Camp Half-Blood, and this is where we meet our final main character. That's not Annabeth, that's Clarice.
She would squash you like a bug.
Her name.
Annabeth, daughter of Athena, the goddess of wisdom.
No? Alright. Because incredible fighter, brown hair and badass woman which immediately antagonizes Percy when he arrives to camp, it sounds like Clarice to me. If you don't get what I'm talking about, Clarice is the daughter of Ares, the god of war. She's also a bully who immediately picks on Percy the second he arrives to camp. She makes his life unbearable, and she's basically the Draco Malfoy to Percy's Harry Potter. She becomes his main rival if you want. As for Annabeth in the book, she's actually the one taking care of Percy when he wakes up in the hospital, establishing her as a smart and caring person, which will eventually help contrast with the hot-headed temper of Percy. All that subtlety was lost in the adaptation process. Next up, Mr. Browner reveals his true identity as Charon and gives Percy a tour of his new cabin.
My father's Poseidon.
God of the seas.
Why didn't anybody tell me?
It was for your own safety.
Normally, this is the part where I point out the fact that in the book, Percy doesn't know that his father is Poseidon because of the prophecy I mentioned earlier. But since there is no prophecy here, no problem, and goddammit, they set it up in the next movie.
It's exceedingly rare for a child to be born to one of the big three. You're very powerful. A threat. Poseidon's brothers. Zeus and Hades. Why your mother married your stepfather. His pungent odor masked the smell of your blood.
Yes, this is indeed from the book. But in the goddamn book, once again, Sally didn't know about Camp Half-Blood, and that's why she was with Gabe to protect Percy, because she had clearly no other option. In fact, seeing as how Gabe seems to be violent with Percy in the movie,
This is my house. You show some respect.
Hey, don't talk about my mom like that, you bald-headed freak.
is Sally that great of a mom? I mean, she has good intention, but God is she dumb. And even though it is not said word for word in the novel, it is implied that this protection, while efficient, is not perfect, seeing as how monsters have been attacking Percy multiple times through his childhood. Here, if his mom knows about the camp, why isn't she sending him here 12 months a year? Annabeth, being a permanent resident of the camp, is a big part of the book, and so are some other lesser characters. But speaking of Poseidon, not only in the book does Percy doesn't know he is his dad, but no one knows, which is the case for most demigods. We have to wait the 8th chapter for Percy to be claimed as a son of Poseidon and finally move in his cabin. This is a big deal because, as I mentioned, being born of one of the 3 great gods is incredibly rare, and some, if not most half-blood, wait their entire life to know who their parent is, which gives a little bit more depth to this.
We'll take him. I'm Luke, son of Hermes and camp leader. Not necessarily in that order.
Bad guy. He's the son of the god of thieves, and the book is called The Lightning Thieves, and he literally presents himself as a son of Hermes who doesn't like Hermes. He's the bad guy. Obviously, Luke was always the son of Hermes, but in the book, he's established as a big brother figure for Percy and most of the half-blood children. He is, yes, shady, but in a more mysterious way, and he is the one retrieving the flag during the Capture the Flag game. Speaking of which...
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Did you really think it would be that easy? My mother is goddess of wisdom and battle strategy. Do you know what that means? I always win.
Yes, the showdown in the book is between Clarice and Percy, but since they decided to merge the character of Clarice and Annabeth, probably the 2 less compatible people on Earth in this adaptation, this is what we have! So Percy gets his ass kicked, obviously, but Poseidon tells him to go to the water because Poseidon can talk to Percy in this adaptation.
Go to the water. The water will give you power.
Percy being on his own and in the dark about his power is a big part of the book. It's even arguably the subject of the book. Even the fact that Poseidon claims Percy after the Capture the Flag game is only because Poseidon needs him. Through the book, Poseidon will not be that helpful to Percy aside for when he actually needs Percy in return. He does get better in the later books, but in the second movie he becomes a distant father, so... Look, try to characterize it, I have a headache. After that, we get an attempt of developing the character of Annabeth and Percy and their romance.
I get the sense that you don't like me very much.
I definitely have strong feelings for you. I just haven't decided if they're positive or negative yet.
Will you let me know?
And Percy is acting pretty chill for someone who just saw his only parent being murdered in front of him 3 days ago. Horny teenagers are assholes. Which is a shame for Percy Jackson because one of the great strengths of the character of Percy is that he's a pretty enjoyable person to be around. He's cocky and arrogant sometimes, but in a funny way. But most importantly, he always thinks of others before thinking of himself. And he does what he has to do to protect the people he loves and even people he doesn't know, because Percy is this archetype of a great hero who will put himself on the line for the safety of others. Here he's an asshole, but not an asshole like Eric Cartman or Geoffrey Baratheon, a passive asshole, which in my books makes him all the most unbearable, but I'm me, you're you. Everything goes well at the party until they're attacked by...
Percy Jackson, show yourself!
Lucifer? Wrong pantheon, bro. Christianism is a good 2000 years in the future. You'll guess it. In the book, the main event that set off the plotline of the quest is not Percy being attacked by Hades in the camp, but rather Percy being attacked by a hellhound. Remember that this will be important later. Charon actually assigns a quest to Percy to go in the underworld to prove his innocence, because he believes that since a hellhound attacked him, Hades is after Percy, while in the movie he just runs away from Camp Half-Blood in the middle of the night with his best friend who's half gold and a girl he barely knows. He's dead inside, but he's also really dumb.
You tried to kill me, now you want to defend me?
You've won one battle, and I've won hundreds. You're gonna need my experience.
By the way, let's count the interaction between Percy and Annabeth for her to be that lawful to him. They had a cute eye contact, she kicked his ass, he defeated her, and now they're acting like best friends. Alright, that's the laziest writing I've ever seen. Not the laziest, but it's pretty up there.
Buying shoes?
Mm-hmm. My dad's.
Ah, there you go, Luke giving them the winged shoes, which is also in the book, but for different reasons. It is explained in the book that Percy, being the son of Poseidon, is not allowed to use the shoes as the sky is Zeus's domain, so if Percy was to trespass, Zeus would instantly kill him. So Percy gracefully accepts the shoes from Luke, but gives them to Grover. But the shoes are enchanted to drag whoever steps with them in the underworld right back into Tartarus. And this is where in the book they will realize that Luke betrayed them. Is it like that in the movie? We'll see in a couple of minutes. But the important part is, do you know why Percy wins even though he's a dumbass? It's because Luke is even dumber. In the book, this plan to send Percy right into the Tartarus pit, it's pretty elaborated, and also you can't see it coming. They avoided it by pure luck. Here Luke gave them some useful tools, and he also shows them how to get the pearl to get off the underworld.
This is a map to Persephone's pearls. She hates it there. It's hot, he's a weirdo. She keeps pearls hidden for them all over the world, and these pearls, they provide a quick escape from the underworld. Right now, there's 3 pearls in the United States. There's your first location.
As these pearls are indeed in the book, but they're not part of the quest. They are a gift along the way from Poseidon to Percy. Which also explains why there are only 3 of them, even though they are supposed to go in the underworld and get back with 4 people. So obviously because of these pearls, the quest is modified. In the book, Percy, Grover and Annabeth go straight to LA, and everything they come across are just obstacles along the way. It's a different type of storytelling, but once again, they can't count to 4, Jesus! But the fact is, where they actually find the first pearl in the movie is also an obstacle in the book, including...
It's not my Uncle Ferdinand, because my Uncle Ferdinand was killed by... Medusa.
Yes, Medusa. They come across her by accident in the book, but it's still nice to see her even though she's not that important to the story. That said, Annabeth Chase, daughter of Athena, goddess of battle strategy, knowing fully well that Medusa is lurking somewhere, decides to just freeze on the spot when she sees her, fully cloaked.
Don't move.
Oh, she said don't move. She didn't have to take it literally.
I was for the fight, something we can't look at. We can look at a reflection.
How do you know that? Percy sure seems to know a lot about Greek mythology for someone who has earbuds in the museum and is also notorious for being a bad student with learning disabilities. And now something historic is happening because this third of a movie is doing something better than the book. You see, in both versions, they managed to kill Medusa by beheading her, passing on the fact that Percy basically just decapitated someone and is totally fine with it, once again proving that he's dead inside.
Heads up.
But at least here, they try to make the most of it and to keep Medusa's head as a weapon for further uses. As where in the book, Percy mails the head of Medusa to Olympus. That's something a sociopath does. For the next pearl, they are found into the replica of the Parthenon at Nashville. In the book, they are at the Great St. Louis Arch at this point. Just because Annabeth wanted to see her, this is where her passion for architecture is established. That said, it's one of the worst Annabeth moments, as she's supposed to be the daughter of the goddess of wisdom, and now she takes a sidetrack to do an activity. Plus, Nashville Parthenon, St. Louis Arch, 2 big monuments connected with Annabeth, knowing the fact that there is a statue of Athena within the temple, so you know what? I'm alright with it. So they hide in the bathroom and then knock out the janitor to have a chance to steal the pearl.
Why did you do that? They're not dead, they're unconscious. Now we have 30 minutes. Come on.
cool.
Yeah, you see that guy who just fell from a ladder right on top of a marble block? He's fine. So Percy manages to retrieve the pearl using the flying shoes, establishing once and for all how much of an idiot Luke is to give them so many useful tools. Then the janitors wake up and this happens.
We've been expecting you, Mr. Jackson. Just give us the lightning bolt and we'll let you go.
First of all, the Hydra was not in the book. It was a chimera, which will become a problem eventually because if I'm not mistaken, in the third or fourth book, the actual Hydra comes into play. But at this point, does anyone really expect a saga from this? Then opposite to popular belief, the Hydra is not a spitting fire dragon, but most of the time an actual Greek myth, it's a poisonous snake with a beast body or even a snake with multiple heads. Finally, the Hydra doesn't and will never have the ability to devise into janitors to bait the main character out of the bathroom, which will be my getaway to explain once again why the mist is so important. If the mist was there to cloak the Hydra as the janitor, it would still be a pretty big stretch, but at least there would be an explanation. Because at this point, this movie is just shouting some shut up, it's magicism at us. Obviously, Percy cuts the head of the Hydra, they devise and Grover decide he had enough of this bullshit and turns the Hydra to stone in a pretty well done scene. Even, I think if the movie had one brilliant scene, it's this one.
You said what now? It's not even in the book, it's treason!
No, it's a liberty, a little element changed by a screenwriter to adapt to another medium, opposing to a treason which destroys the entire premise of the story. And since I really enjoyed the whole Nashville sequence, I'm gonna mention it here. The cinematography in this film is pretty well done. I really enjoyed the lighting, the effects still holds up today even though they're not perfect. The movie is even well cast. The actors, without being phenomenal, they're pretty great. And I think that's the worst part of the movie. Somewhere down the line, some people were actually trying to make a great film with this. It's all the more frustrating. Now they get to dinner and
Scientists are baffled by what now appears to be a single storm cloud that is expanding over much of Europe and Asia, moving towards the United States. So far, no casualties, but countries everywhere are preparing for the worst.
The gods are angry.
nothing happens. It's disappointing because in the book, this is where Ares come into play. Ares, the god of war, Percy's least favorite Olympian, and even the final boss of the final battle in the book. He's not in the film. He's not in the film. It's like if they did Harry Potter without Professor Quirrell. I'm trying to stop comparing these two licenses, but if you have something better, here's the comment section. Next up, the Lotus Casino. So just like in the book, they stay in there 5 days because they're under a spell. But unlike in the book...
No, Percy. Don't eat the flower. It dulls the senses. Keeps you prisoner here.
Poseidon helps Percy. I know we've talked about it, but you've got to realize how much for the first adventure Percy has to rely on himself. In fact, how much in the general adventure of Percy Jackson is Percy left with this feeling of loneliness, of being the sole heir to Poseidon and having to rely on his own set of skills when he come across situations like this one. So having Poseidon talking telepathically to Percy, that's just dumb and lazy.
French Connection, huh? Yeah. Seen it yet? I think it's the best movie of the year. What? Wait, this year? Yeah, this year, 1971.
In the book, there is scenes similar to this one, and Percy realizes that they are under a spell because of it. He actually uses his seaweed brain. So Percy just went from an actual smart warrior to someone who relies on plot armor. And even then, what a shitty plot armor. Poseidon waited 5 days to be like, my son's a moron, I might want to get involved. You either help or you don't, Poseidon. fast forward, the trio gets the pearl and get to the underworld entrance, which is in LA. So at this point, you might be wondering how did they expect to get up the underworld in the book if they didn't have the pearl? And they didn't. That's it. Their plan was to talk things through with Hades. Wait, was it? Actually, you know what? I'm realizing now that I don't remember this part of the book very well, so I'm 90% sure this is it, but if it's not, boom, comment section. Their plan in the novel, as I remember it, was to get to the underworld, yes, but since in chapter 8 Percy has been claimed as Poseidon's son, they have a literal great god on their side because Poseidon indeed needs Percy's help. And in the book, yes, there are indeed 3 pearls which Percy is given by Poseidon as a gift. So here it is justified that there are only 3 pearls because they were never supposed to retrieve them, and they were never supposed to retrieve his mom from Hades because from Percy's perspective, his mom is very well dead. Apparently, there were some scenes that were in the book that were actually filmed for the movie, but they decided to cut them so the casino scene could go longer because they needed Grover to dance. God damn it! They get to the underworld's entrance and meet Charon, which is supposed to bring them there, and even though he's very different from the book, and that in the book his appearance is majestic, let's say it like that, I'm not gonna evoke it too much here because I think he's alright. Even though we all know the best Charon is from Clash of the Titan, the Canadian animated show, which has the similar premise to Percy Jackson. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please check this series, and if you want me to cover it in a further episode, leave a comment. So they go to meet Hades and
lost hopes and dreams. Wishes that never came true.
This is not the Greek underworld. This is Christian hell. Let me explain if you don't know what I'm talking about. Even though most mythology have a good place and a bad place.
In the afterlife, there's a good place and there's a bad place.
Yeah, I just said that, Michael. So even though there is a difference between good and evil in the afterlife in most myths, in Greek mythology, everyone goes to the underworld. But that doesn't mean anyone has to suffer, even though there are some pretty terrible places, such as the river Styx or Tartarus. There is also the Elysium, where all the heroes go for an eternal rest in happiness. Which is our first red flag for what is coming up next, Hades.
We have visitors.
Nephew, would you prefer that I looked like this?
This version of Hades is not only disrespectful to the spirit of Percy Jackson, but for the actual Greek mythology. You see, thanks to the omnipresence of Christianism in our modern society, we tend to associate religion with an ultimate god of good against an ultimate entity of evil. Here it is easy to see Zeus versus Hades in these topics. But when you dig in the actual Greek mythology, you'll find that Zeus is kind of an lawful evil asshole, and Hades is a pretty okay guy, all things considered. In most myths where he's present, he's pretty helpful, he's pretty polite, and he really does despicable things opposite to his 2 brothers, Poseidon and Zeus. Because we have this image also amplified in pop culture with movies like Disney's Hercules, Rick Riordan really wrote his story for you to understand that in the entire book, you have to think Hades is the bad guy. But when you get at this point in the book, you realize that Hades is not evil. The only reason he has been sending monsters after Percy is because his Helm of Darkness was stolen with the lightning bolt, and he believes Percy to be the thief. So Hades reveals that Percy's mother is in some kind of vegetative living situation, and when she is reunited with his son, Percy throws off his shield, breaking the lid, and the lightning bolt comes out. It's pretty similar in the book, because in the book Ares gave Percy a book bag which summons the lightning bolt to him and helps incriminate him in front of Hades in the hope that Hades will kill Percy. So Persephone betrays Hades because, as we all know for Greek mythology, Hades and Persephone are not in love at all, and they manage to escape.
Only 3.
Mostly.
Each pearl transports only a single person. One of you will have to stay.
I'm staying because I'm the protector. Look, man, I don't want to hear it. Just go. It's my duty.
You believe that 3 demigods can count to 4. You'd be wrong. So they escape the underworld while Grover stays because reasons? While in the book, they leave the mother in the underworld because they escape in the heat of the moment and are then confronted by Heroes. Heroes, who is once again the main antagonist of this adventure, Jesus. It is also where Heroes revealed that he has commissioned Luke to be the lightning thief, because gods cannot steal their powers. It's ironic that they set up this rule at the beginning of the movie and that the most important part of the movie where that rules come to play is non-existent.
We are forbidden from stealing each other's powers.
It's like having a sandwich with only one slice of bread. So in the book, this is where the final showdown happens. Heroes versus Percy, battling it out. Percy taking advantage of his godly attribute in water to even the field, cleverly taking on Heroes, who has to be called back by an unknown entity.
Percy Jackson!
Or they can just fight Luke. I mean, the Wish version of Luke. Let's talk about Luke for a bit. Even though in the movie they say all demigods have powers, which is established in said movie that is not true, in the book some have powers and some don't. And Luke is in the second category, opposing to Percy, who, let's face it, is near invulnerable near water. This creates an interesting dynamic between the arch nemesises, because what Luke lacks in raw power, he makes up for it in skills, intelligence, and resourcefulness. Luke's greatest weapon is definitely his charisma and his words, being able to corrupt people and rally multiple monsters and half-blood to his cause to finally unleash Kronos in the 4th book. Let's see how it's going for him.
You weren't supposed to make it out alive.
Then why did you give them the pearls? And the winged shoes? Moron! Speaking of the winged shoes, Luke and Percy battle it out in the Manhattan skyline. Percy manages to get the upper end on a son of Hermes wearing Hermes artifacts. It was even said in the movie earlier that these shoes takes time to master.
Do a run, okay? He's got to build up speed, kind of like a jet on a runway. But it's gonna take some practice.
So anyway, Percy defeats Luke with the power of CGI animated water, which has aged pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah. I think I am the son of Poseidon.
And he and Annabeth climb atop of the Empire State Building on Mount Olympus. How did Sally knew it was here? Percy gives the lightning bolt back and Zeus congratulates him, as where in the book Zeus actually says that Percy can live this time, which sparked a huge relationship of hatred between the two, and Poseidon can finally have some father-son talk.
I didn't do it for you. I did it to save Mom.
You don't have much time.
Look, I didn't need you there all the time. Would have liked to have seen you just once.
When I was with you and your mother, I became less concerned with my responsibilities. I was becoming human.
That's a bad thing?
For a god, Zeus thought so.
This father-son dynamic was not in the book, at least not in the first one. Through the adventures, eventually we see that Poseidon grows to somewhat care for Percy, but it's not in the first book. I like it, I really do, and I think it is an interesting take. Too bad that Poseidon reversed to be a selfish asshole in the second movie. After that, Percy gets back to the camp and we get an after credit where Gabe dies. Alright?
Still the king of this castle.
I get that he's an asshole, but Sally is the last person to see him alive. He died in her apartment and he has been mistreating her for years, which gives her motive. Sally's gonna have some things to explain to the police. So that was Percy Jackson and the Olympian, the Lightning Thief. And yes, I've been bullying it for half an hour now, but to be honest, Not as bad as I remembered. Don't get me wrong, it's trash, but it is a classic case of bad writing of a good concept. Meanwhile, the cinematography is great. I mean, look at these shots, these colors, especially this great light effect that I have not picked yet, but I will do it while editing because I am 100% sure I can make a case about this movie looking great. Obviously, that's a bad film, but it at least looks finished. Right? By now, it's been pretty well established that this film is the attempt at Fox of recreating a magic book to movie adaptation franchise like Harry Potter, which might be why there is no Cerberus in the movie, because the copycat would be way too obvious. It was apparently popular enough for Disney to try to reboot the franchise with some great start in the series format, and anyway, I always thought that the Percy Jackson universe deserves a TV show rather than a film. So if you like this movie, you should not be ashamed of it, because at the end of the day, it's still Percy Jackson related content, which is goddamn great. On that note, if you want to see my last video, you can click right here. If you want to see me rant about the fact that some movies are indeed better than the book, you can click right there. Then share this video with all your friends. Remember to subscribe and activate the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes up, and follow me on my social medias. And as always, thanks for watching.